Welcome to the Roundtable. I am Jennifer Eller, and with me today, my partners in crime.
That's way better than co-host.
It is. You know,
is better.
I was working. I was
Probably way more accurate.
Partners in crime.
well. I was working on things for the story wall today, so I was listening to a lot of roundtables, and I kept saying the same thing over and over again.
So
I'm like, this is
Partners in Crime is
boring.
way
So I
better
thought
than
I got to come up with something
co-host.
else. So yeah, you know, we could have some fun and get into some trouble probably. So you guys could be my partners in
Partners
crime.
in crime.
So there you go. So
Okay.
Mike Hill. Nick Wilson, but Corinne's going to take over for a little bit. Well, Nick has to go somewhere. So, yeah, welcome, Corinne. And then our guest today is Annie Kistler. Hello,
Yay.
Annie. Thank you, God, for letting Annie come today. So, couple fun questions for you. So, you're a grandma of how many?
I am Nana to 4 grandsons, ranging from 9 to, I think the youngest one's 15 months.
Okay.
All boys.
Wow. All boys.
All boys. I came from a family of all girls, now I've got all grandsons.
So, what is your favorite thing to do with the boys?
We camp. Mike and I had bought a camper right before he passed away. We got a truck and a camper, and then he passed away, and so I had a camper, and now I went and bought an easier one, but yes, now I pull a camper and we go camping.
Because the other
Nice.
one was too big?
It was a hybrid
Okay.
with the fold-out ends.
Okay.
And I couldn't do it by myself anymore. So we have a lot of fun doing that, and the kids play sports, and I don't miss anything. So
Nice.
You chase them everywhere?
I do. My dad did for us, and it was very important. I believe that, and so yes, if they're both playing the same day, then halftime I do a switch. So
Wow.
yeah.
So, do you like to cook or do you like to take things out to eat?
I don't really prefer to eat in restaurants. I really prefer to cook. Now, I use the term loosely. I can cook. And if I'm going down to my son's, I usually will cook and take the ingredients. And when I'm really hungry for something, I'll cook and I'll share with my daughter. And she works at Wings, and I share with them. But I'll tell you, some nights I really have SpaghettiOs and meatballs or a turkey sandwich. So, just depends on my mood.
SpaghettiOs.
With meatballs, not just the plain ones. That's my go-to if I've worked on something too long and I'm like, oh crap, I should not eat too late because it doesn't help me sleep well. So.
Yeah. So when you were growing up, what did you want to be when you grew up? What job would you have had if you could have had any job?
Really, I just wanted to get married and raise family. So when I grew up, when you graduated, you either, some of them went to college, the rest of us got married, and you started families. So my family was blue collar. My parents both worked at factories, and that was my first job. I babysat, we did that all the time, but my first real job was in a factory. Actually, it was the original this factory.
Oh, really?
Yes, it was. So,
Your parents worked at this factory?
no, I did.
Oh, you did?
I did.
But where was it prior to here?
In the building closest to Bryan over there.
Like where Precision...
Sing, is that Sing,
Metal or
SINGH or whatever?
Oh,
the
towards the back
overflow
of that
lot.
one.
Yeah, over
Got it.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, what, Magnatech? It was something else. Triad, U-Trad.
Oh.
And everybody in town worked there. And you could work there more than once. They just had continual turnover. I think I worked there 5 years and never made $5.
Wow. Yeah, my dad worked there. My mom and dad both, that's where they met. But
You worked
Okay.
there 5 years and
Yeah.
didn't make $5?
Never made a $5 an hour.
yeah, I think they made like $1 or $2.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, that was in the late 60s, early 70s. I mean, people, can you imagine that today? What?
$5. I certainly wouldn't work for $5 now.
Yeah, right?
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I actually had worked there twice. So,
So then growing up, were you a wild child or were you a rule follower?
I was never really a rule follower. And I think as I got older, that became more evident. I had 4 younger sisters. My parents worked separate shifts. A lot of times I was in charge of the 4 beneath me. So as I got older, and, you know, you learn to drive and you do certain things, and I decided there was more out there, I guess. Probably things I shouldn't have discovered, but I did. I got kicked out of high school, Catholic high school.
Oh, my.
Yeah, my sophomore year, for smoking in the building. So then I went to Huntington North, and that's where I graduated from. So, yeah, my mother was mortified
For you smoking in the building?
for getting kicked out. Yes, my dad was mad because he had to come, and the priest that kicked me out was sitting there smoking as he was kicking me out.
Oh, my gosh.
So, but I could have really easily been more of a juvenile delinquent if given the chance. So.
Given the chance.
Yeah, yeah. I was talking to somebody yesterday about them being able to be sneaky. I said, yeah, probably their biggest mistake was putting me on the ground floor with the window.
In your house?
In
You sneak out of
in
the
my
house?
parents' house, yes. So,
Yeah.
but you know, we all do things, and so. But my dad had probably done all the things I did. My mom had never done any of it, so she had a hard time accepting that I wasn't in the rank and file. So,
Yeah. So when did you meet your first husband?
actually, we met. He lived up the road, and I was friends with his sister. And we were engaged by the time I was 16, and married.
Engaged when you were 16?
Married shortly after I turned 18. We'd got married sooner, but I had to be 18. So, so that was right out of high school. So, hence the luggage story earlier.
The what?
So just start telling your story, Annie. What was that marriage like? And yeah, what?
Mom and I were like oil and water as I got older, and she got me luggage for my graduation present.
That's a great idea.
Isn't that a great idea? If you can't get your
Yes.
kids out of the basement, because I loved the sermon a couple of weeks ago, because I know people that I'm like, dude, these people out of your house, you're not doing them any favors, right? So, anyways, I guess that was my favor. So I got married 18, and Gary and I started a family. I think I was 21 when Brandy was born, and then I was still 21 when she died. And she died at the babysitter's in a swimming pool. Somebody obviously wasn't keeping an eye on her. And, you know, growing up in the Catholic Church and in my household, growing up, people died. My first memory is being 5 years old. First memory. Standing next to my dad on a kneeler at my grandmother's funeral. And I don't know if that was a harbinger of things to come, because I've been in that funeral home, same funeral home, more times than I'd like to remember. So anyways, carried on, had 2 more kids, and
Well, don't kind of skip over that. I mean, you just
what
kind
do you
of.
want? Well, but that's what they expect.
Yeah.
It was just, it's nobody talked about her. It was never a discussion. I was devastated, but we were raised that things happen and this is the way it goes, and it was more of a suck it up buttercup kind of. It wasn't harsh, but it was reality, you know.
But at that time, so you grew up in the Catholic Church. Did you have faith at this point? Like,
I have
where
always,
did God fit into it?
I have always believed in God, and I was never so mad at Him in my entire life. But there was nobody to talk to work through it.
What about your husband?
No.
Like he's not worth, like, didn't want to talk through things, or
No, it was just, this is what happened, and what's our next plan? She died in 21, or I'm sorry, in she was born in 83, died in 84, and then I had my son in 85. So then it's just life moves forwards. Only it really doesn't. Only it really doesn't. Eventually it will come back and bite you. And eventually it did. And instead of making decisions that I needed to make, because when you get married, you're expected to be there for life and make things work. And it's hard to make things work when there's not a whole lot of discussions going on. And I crawled into the bottom of a bottle thinking that that was the answer. Because it was easy to cope. You know, I was very high functioning. I got up. I didn't work until that was the agreement to have more children was I was not going to go back to work. If we were having kids, then I was the one in charge. And that meant 24/7. It made
did
me.
he help with the kids at all? Or?
Once they got older and they could do things, yes. And he attended all the sporting events and helped run them here and there and whatnot. And this entire time, I was taking the kids and going to church. We went to the Catholic church a lot. My dad went every Sunday. And that was nothing that he was ever interested in. So, you know, so anyways, we move on to, I left and we got divorced and,
so you were drinking and stuff while you were still married to him?
I
correct?
was, yes. I was in all that stuff with Brandy happened early 20s. By the time, and I partied all the time when I was a kid. I probably smoked my first weed, smoked my first cigarette, had my first drink. I think I was 14 years old. But I didn't drink all that time. I drank on and off, parties and whatnot. But early 30s, instead of making tough choices that would have been better for me, I decided that drinking was the answer until it blew up. So, and it did. And all this time I'm still I attended church all the time. I burned that rosary up. I'm surprised I didn't wear it out. And I had, by that time, thought I had moved past my anger towards God and everybody else, and that wasn't the case. And I was probably, I don't know, it was later 30s, and my life just imploded. And I had to make some tough decisions to get things turned around, and so that's what I did. I quit drinking, and I got a divorce, and I moved on.
So you just stopped drinking on your own?
Oh, God, no.
Okay.
Oh, no, that took 3 counselors and some drugs.
Okay. So you sought out help then for that. You knew
I had to.
You knew you wanted to make a change.
I had to, yes, I had to. My life wasn't going to get any better. And unfortunately, alcoholism runs in the family. I watched that happen to a lot of the people in my family. But I'm very, if I have something in front of me, then if I've made up my mind I'm going to do something, I can do it. A lot of people that quit drugs or alcohol, the average person used to be, I don't know if this is still the truth, used to be the average person failed 7 times. I never went back to it. I quit one day and that was it. It wasn't easy.
Right.
And I didn't really, until Terry died, my second husband, I lived in North Carolina, and that's when I knew I was really sober. Because he died, and I didn't end up on a bar stool somewhere. Because there wasn't anybody there to watch me. It was just him and I down there. Yeah. So.
You weren't married for him very long, were you?
No, unfortunately not. Yeah. I loved him dearly. And we were married in 2003. We spent our honeymoon at the Lutheran Hospital, and then he died in 2007. Wow. And I went back to North Carolina thinking I could pick up my life down there, and that wasn't the case. We attended, because he was Catholic also, And around here, we had to follow rules because people knew who we were. Down there, we could participate in everything because they didn't know. I know that sounds terrible, but they didn't.
Yeah.
But they didn't know.
Right.
So we could more fully pick our faith back up because there's a lot of roadblocks in the Catholic religion.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, he died in 2007, and I went back, and in 2008, I decided I couldn't do it anymore down there by myself. So I came back, and at that time, my dad had been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. So the timing was good. I took care of Dad. I took care of his doctor's appointments and found him someone in Cleveland to go to. We used to go to, I'd take him to Cleveland. I managed his meds, and he was always my go-to person. But even when Brandy died, it was hard to go to because his Catholic faith was just, I don't know, Annie, things happen. God's in charge and things happen. And I remember telling that to the surgeon in North Carolina when he called and said, what happened? And I said, what happened is God's in charge. And it was his time. And no matter what surgery you do or how much I pray, it was his time. So if you spend your life trying to redirect the other person's path, you're standing in their journey, is what I've come to. That's a conclusion that I've come to. And it's never so evident that God is in charge when people die. I think that really...
You think that's when people realize that God's in charge?
I did. That was my big defining moment, was that he definitely is in charge, and that you've got to have faith that they were on their journey and you were really blessed to be a part of their journey. But all the things that have happened in my life, I don't like to focus. I don't tell my story very often because you guys use the word testimony. Growing up, it was just, that was my cross and move on. So I was never in an environment that fostered any sort of healing from people dying and what you should do to move forwards.
Well, just so everybody makes sure we're on track. So your daughter dies.
My daughter dies.
I mean, she wasn't very old.
She was 6 months.
6 months old. And then in your first marriage, you go on, you're having kids, but that marriage starts to deteriorate. And a lot of that is because unresolved. Like, what was some of the deterioration of your first marriage?
I think because we didn't work through it together,
Right.
I think I dove into taking care of those kids because I wasn't going to lose another one. And he just busied himself with the stuff that men do.
Right.
But it's true.
Right. No, for sure.
Yeah, for sure, So
Yeah, we're going to go out and work, and you go, and you were going to immerse yourself in the kids to make sure that you didn't lose another one.
exactly.
Right. So that marriage starts to deteriorate.
Yes.
So then at that point, you started drinking?
Yes.
Okay.
Drinking came back into my life. I had left the smoke and the weed and all that long time before that. And we'd go out or we'd go to parties and we'd drink, but it really was the numbing.
Right. Right.
I could go to work all day after the kids went to school. I could be done when they were done with school, and then take care of what needed to take care of, like we do. You cook and you make sure they get their baths and homework and stuff. And then it was easy to just pour a drink.
Right. Right. So then to get a divorce and you get remarried.
I do.
Right. And so I missed this part. So this guy's sick too from the beginning? Like, what happened? Like you said, you got married and then...
You are that night.
Yeah, and then he died. Like I maybe
Like 4
missed-
years later, but she was in the ER that night on their honeymoon. They were in the ER.
Okay.
And then, like,
He had to have surgery, yes. But I guess I skipped over the part where I got sober, didn't I? The three counselor, I met it. I was so fortunate, and we keep in contact to this day. Actually, I was talking to him yesterday. He was the one that helped me to realize that I needed to mourn and I needed to be mad and I needed to let all those things out so that I could move on. So that's where that came in.
And that was before you got remarried?
That was before I got remarried.
Okay.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
you're thinking, life's going good, I'm sober, I've
Yep.
worked through all that, I'm going to get remarried, start a new life. And then what happened?
He was older than I.
Okay.
So he already had a heart condition. But in 2000, so the heart condition is what took us on our honeymoon to the Lutheran Hospital for a surgery. And then we moved to North Carolina for his job in 2005. And in 2007, in July, he was diagnosed with esophageal cancer. And he was gone the week before Christmas. So.
And so on that journey with him, life is getting better, faith is getting better,
Yeah.
things are
Yeah.
going in the right
Yeah,
direction.
the kids are almost grown. You know, Jared's in college. Megan's getting ready to graduate high school. Yeah, it was going great until it wasn't.
Yeah. And so then for this, so then it's another setback? Or
No,
was this just another like, hey, buck up, take it, move on?
pretty much. Yep. So then I moved back and get busy, and I had bought a house when I got divorced, so I had kept my house, and I moved back home, and I got busy, you know, helping my sister, and Marty was the counselor I had, and I went to see him one day. Well, he desperately needed help, so I said, you need to hire me, and you need to pay me X amount of dollars, and I don't want to work full time, and so anyways, I got he was a drug and alcohol counselor for the people through the courts, which is a whole other ballgame. And being the fact that I had a few years of sobriety under my belt, it was interesting. I was able to call the crap out. You know, people who have had an addiction, who have recovered from addiction, can tell when the people are lying sometimes.
Right.
They come in smelling to high heaven like whiskey because nobody knows the smell of alcohol better than somebody who's been sober.
Right. Right.
So anyways, I was back working, and my sister had little ones I helped with at that time. And then I met a friend of mine introduced me to Mike. And Mike and I were married, and I think we were married 3 years. And then he was diagnosed with cancer. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You know, it's just like, dude,
Right.
come on. So I was helping take care of my dad, and Mike had cancer. Somebody said, it's not your turn. I said, what is it about turns? This is what I got.
Right.
And I don't wish any of this on anybody else.
Right.
So, and it doesn't do you any good to fuss around about it. So, Mike was sick. We were married 11 years, and he was sick for 8 of them. And you know how that goes.
Yes.
And it's, even though you're in it, it's not your ball game. You're still kind of the cheerleader on the side.
Right.
Because there were decisions that were made that I probably wouldn't have went with, but I always said it's not my ball game. I'm just your support. And but we had a great 11 years, and he had a sister, but he had lost both his parents. He had lost a son. So we kind of understood each other that way. And he was also sober. He had quit drinking. And he got to experience a family and grandkids. And I have no regrets.
Yeah.
All the way around.
Right.
Things could have been a little easier, but I believe that you have a path and you can push back all you want. But in the end, it's your path. And at some point, you've got to decide how you and God are going to work this path out. So I never really wanted to be a caretaker, but that has been my job in life, is taking care of people. I took care of my sisters. I took care of my dad, 2 husbands, That's just always been my thing. So I truly believe that's what God put me here for. It took a little while to get to that and to come to terms with that, but
Yeah.
so
So on that journey with each one of those tragedies, you feel like your faith is growing, or is it staying stagnant? Like, where are you?
oh no. Every time it has gotten stronger.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, if you don't have God, you don't have anything. It doesn't matter what you had or lost,
Right.
right? The whole point is to get to the end. And so you can either accept it and move forward with it, or you can fight back against it. And when I was married to Mike, because Mike had a strong faith, that's when it started, and he got sick because we did Bible studies together. We went to college. We tried to go to the Catholic Church, but Catholics aren't very good about sharing. He wanted to know what page we were on in some missal one Sunday, and I go, I don't know. I have all this memorized. I know it all by heart. I don't need that book. So then we decided that maybe that wasn't the best place. So we went to College Park, which has been fabulous. It was a good place for us to be. He had a great support system there, and that's where Miss Janet was. And him and Miss Janet were very close. Him and his friend Dale and Miss Janet were like 3 peas in a pod, from what I hear. So anyways, that's really where the scripture part started coming in, because he did read a Bible every day, and he did pray every day. And some days I'd open the door to go see where it is, and he'd be on his knees. And I'm like, oops, sorry. Yeah. So that's where the daily prayer and the scriptures really started.
Because that wasn't a part of your Catholic faith.
No.
Yeah.
It was strange. It took me a long time to realize this, and it's just been recently. And I asked a couple of my sisters, I don't remember there being a Bible in the house. I don't remember there being a Bible in my grandparents' house.
Right.
I don't remember anyone using a Bible on a daily basis until I met Mike. So he was my blessing from God in that aspect, because it really opened up my eyes. You know, I'd heard scriptures, the ones the Catholics pick for their Sunday sermons, but as far as just reading a Bible, we never read a Bible. And God always said, because that's what we're supposed to do, you know? That's the way we've always done it.
Right.
So questioning was not, Megan was a teenager, and she didn't want to go to Catholic church anymore. She wanted to go where her friends go. So we started, her and I and Jared started going to the one in Markle. And my dad was mortified. He's like, why are you going there? And I said, because they have a youth group, and Megan wants to be involved. And he's like, he was just fit to be tied. He really was. He said, why can't you just do the Catholic stuff? I said, Dad, she doesn't understand it. You don't need to understand it. You just need to have faith, is what he said.
Wow.
Right. Right.
So, but that's the way they pretty much are.
Right.
Yeah.
So
So Mike was always involved in the Christian church.
he was, yes.
Okay.
I think he might have met Miss Janet through divorce care.
Oh, okay.
I think, and then ended up, him and Janet led divorce care, that kind of thing. So that's where they had gotten hooked up.
Huh.
So through him, I met Miss Janet. And since my dad has passed away, everybody needs a go-to, and she's kind of my go-to. She's a great sounding board.
Yeah.
So, and there's no better example of a disciple on earth than Miss Janet. That's the way.
Shout out to Miss Janet.
You know it. So she has touched so many people's lives, and she is so positive and caring and uplifting, and so I got to get close to her through Mike, because she was a godsend when he was when he was in hospice at home.
Right.
Yeah.
So she would come over to give me a break, and I think they pretended they were doing Bible stuff, but I think that they were talking through a lot of things. So, but yeah, so that's how I got here, was Miss Janet.
Oh, really?
Yes, that's how I got here. When Mike died, I didn't really want to talk to anybody. And I decided that I would tear my entire house apart. And as I was putting it back together, I would put my life back together. That was my goal.
So she likes to remodel. So she can do a lot of things in her house.
I do like
she
to.
So really like demo. Yeah.
I do like to remodel. And I always have some sort of project going. But I decided that perhaps after, from I think August, he died in January, and in August I thought, I kept seeing that grief share thing. I thought, Dad's not around anymore. Maybe that's a good idea. So I went to grief share, and it was a good idea. It was a lot of good support, but I always can't get past the point of it's done, it's over with, move on. So they said you should find somebody to help. That would make you feel better. I'm like, but I don't want to talk to any people. So I went to the shelter and got a hospice foster dog. And I already had dogs, okay? So it wasn't like I needed another dog, but that dog needed me. And I think I needed to care for something. She was a hospice foster when I got her, 16. Wow. She's a little terrier, doesn't probably weigh 8 pounds. She's blind and she's deaf. Okay? She got sick. I took her in, and they couldn't believe she was still alive. I've had her 2.5 years.
Wow.
I said, you lied. She is not a hospice foster. But I will tell you what, that dog has taught me a lot about faith and trust, because she had lived with the same person her entire life. And she was okay with me. She knew I was going to feed her, and she knew I was going to take care of her, and she has a warm bed. So it was a lot about, I know it's not God involved, but it really is. But it really is. It's like there's a prime example of a living creature that has faith that someone is going to take care of them. Which is what God does for us.
Right.
So.
Yeah. You still have her today.
I do.
What? I thought this dog was dying.
But
Well,
she
that's
still
what they
has
told
her.
me.
So I'm like, you still have her? Wow.
What happened was her person died, and the family that was left didn't want to take care of her.
Right.
So they brought her in to have her put down.
Yeah.
She's perfectly healthy, except she's blind and she's deaf.
Yeah.
Right.
She can see shadows. But it maybe took her 24 hours to find me in the water bowl, and since then she's been happy as she sleeps most of the time. You don't even know she's there.
Wow.
I have had to put 2 of my dogs down since I've gotten her. So she's out living. I said, that dog's still going to be alive, and you're going to bury me. So I don't know which kid's going to take her, but I think she's going to live forever.
Yeah.
So,
So our Christmas Eve service was one of the first services you came to, wasn't it?
it was.
That Janet invited you
So
to?
Miss Janet let me be myself until December.
Yeah.
And in December, she had checked on me, and we had talked and stuff throughout the year. And she said, no pressure. but there's an Eve service. And so she invited 3 people that I think she thought needed to be here. I don't know if the other 2 attend, but I came Christmas Eve, and I'm like, I had never picked my own church out before. You know, I was raised Catholic. Terry was Catholic, so we did Catholic. Mike was College Park, and so we went there, and I'm like, and I had went to Catholic church in that year. I had, but because I tried to go back to College Park, but I couldn't. It was difficult for me to be in there, and she invited me to Eve, and it piqued my interest. So you guys take that. You don't do the Chris. So there was some time lapse. So I don't know how many old sermons I watched and podcasts I watched, and I thought, yeah, I think I should give this a try. So I came in that January, and the first service, I've never heard God speak like audibly, and it just was, follow me. And I'm like, this is where I'm supposed to be. But it was just instantly I started crying, and I'm sure people thought I was crying because, you know.
The message was so good and everything.
Well, I'm pretty sure it wasn't that. No offense.
Nope.
But it wasn't you. It's been you on other occasions, but it was not you that night. And I thought, this is truly where I need to be. So I have done Bible in 1 year. I do devotionals, things that I never would have imagined that I would do. I made a really super good friend here who's a little younger than I. We just clicked. The Adulting 101 class was an easy way to meet some people without the pressure of scripture or whatnot. So, but yeah, it's been a great experience. There's a lot of good things going on here. And I truly believe that God is He's alive in these walls. My grandsons come with me from time to time. My 6-year-old grandson loves coming to church. And this made my hair stand up. He had come to one of the children's ministries. He likes to go there. Leo likes to come to regular church. And it was near Christmas time, and they had done Jesus in a box, where Jesus is folded, and when you open the box, so Jesus is the gift, right? It wasn't too much after that someone that he dearly loves had a meltdown. And he went to his room, and he got his Jesus in the box. And he gave it to that person. Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome.
It is awesome. It is awesome. And he will tell you that, he says, that's our church, isn't it, Nana? That's you and my church, isn't it, Nana? So he is really... he's got an understanding. He's got an understanding. So, but that was just craziness. Really?
Yeah.
So,
through the eyes of a child. Or
through the eyes of a child, exactly. He heard enough that day to know that somebody else needed that gift more than he did.
Right.
So that was pretty cool.
And so, what do you think? Because we're close to the end. So, what do you think are some of the? Because I mean, again, it's kind of hard to fathom your story. I mean, if you sit here and look at it like sometimes we look at it like, oh man, we've had a rough go of it, and then we listen to your story. You know what I mean?
I've had a rough go of it.
You've had a rough go of it.
I have.
And so for other people on whatever level that are having a rough go, or feeling like things just aren't going their way, like what are some things that kept you going through tough times? Like you brought up Miss Janet being somebody who was. Were there other things that kept you moving forward, whether it's something you did on your own or something you did with other people?
Yes. I have, before Miss Janet, it was my dad. My dad was a great sounding block. He was very not judgmental. And I have a grandmother who was fabulous, and she had lost, my grandfather had died when she was in her 50s. So she understood some of that. You've got to find people to relate to. You've got to turn to God, no matter how angry you could be at him.
Right.
He understands that. And being mad at him doesn't change anything on either level. I can't fathom people, say another person walked the same path I walked and didn't have faith. How do you move forwards? How do you move forwards when a lot of the things that you have loved so dearly have gone on before you, and you don't have faith that someday you'll see them again? That's the kicker. That's what keeps me moving forwards. There are people that I want to see. So if you're struggling, then you need to find a person. I, for a while, got lost in walking. I walked a lot. I love music. I listen to a lot of music. I love bluegrass gospel music.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, my son will call and say, "Hey, Mom, what are you doing?" I said, "Me and my hillbilly friends are working on this," and yeah, he just laughs at me. But there's always something to live for.
Right.
There is always something to move. You may not see it at the time. Even when Brandy died later, it took me a long time to realize when I was married to Gary, he only ever wanted one child. I wouldn't have Megan now. So she's the joy that came out of that, pain. And we're very close. Not that I don't miss my daughter, Brandy, every day, but there's always joy. Sometimes you just gotta look a little bit harder to see them. And I'm not one to focus on. That's why I don't often share my story, because I don't want, oh my gosh, poor you, it's been terrible. That's not what it's about.
Right.
It's about moving forwards and helping other people move forwards.
Yeah, well, I think you would fit into the epitome of what Scripture says, right? So, Scripture says we're all going to struggle. So every single person is going to have it. And in the testing of our faith, right? Because it's almost the complete opposite in the world today. A lot of times your faith is tested and people are like, I can't believe in a God that allows certain things like that happen. You're the opposite. It makes me even believe more in a God that, yes, we're all going to have this, but believe more, because I need something to have hope in.
Right,
like
exactly.
Hope in the future, regardless of the circumstances of life, there's always going to be hope for the eternity.
Exactly.
And so you have the epitome of what you're saying in your story is what God always says, is that we can't have our hope in this world.
No, because
our hope in this world is fleeting.
It is fleeting.
It's going to go away. And
it is.
But your hope is in eternity.
Yes.
And making a difference in eternity so that you can, again, spend the rest of your life, with the people that you love.
I want to see my daughter again.
Yeah.
And I won't see her if I can't get there.
Right.
And the only way to get there is moving forwards.
Right. Yeah,
So.
I'm just saying that's a great testimony. Yeah. It's a great story. I mean, again, not from the, wow, I feel sorry, but from the standpoint of, it's like, you passed the test. I mean, you did, and you have, and you've kept moving forward, because that's the key, not how fast or how hard was it, but that you just moved forward.
I just kept going, one foot in front of the other.
Right, instead of retreating or going in the opposite direction. Yeah. So any farting, any
Nick, you might have to edit that out.
Any final parting words of wisdom for our listeners?
You got to stay with God. and you've got to have a person. It's really hard to go through tough times if you don't have someone to sound it off of. We're not meant to do it alone. Sometimes we need to shut ourselves in and be alone, and there's a difference between wanting to be alone, but you can't do it by yourself.
Yeah.
It doesn't bode well without God and without community.
Okay.
So,
Community,
Awesome.
find a person,
yeah,
and let God work.
exactly.
Yeah, awesome.
He's got it.
Yep.
Jennifer, anything else that you have that you wanted to ask?
Wow. I don't know. You never ask me that usually.
I'm just
I
like,
don't
now that you
know.
started putting this list over there that I keep looking at, I'm always wondering
That's just my beginning. So
if
I
I
can
like.
fun questions.
Yeah.
So that's
No,
the
I
fun
don't.
stuff. She
Okay.
doesn't give you the fun. The
You got to
fun
do the deep
questions.
questions.
You have to get
no, but
the harder ones.
yeah, but Annie, I know when I first asked you, you were in the cafe, and I said, "Did Jenny ever ask you to be on the round table?" You're like, "Nope," and you weren't even sure. But
I wasn't.
You do have a lot of wisdom, and God has used you in mighty ways, and He's still going to do that. And so I'm thankful that you wanted to come on and share where you've been and where God's taking you, because you didn't stay where you were at, and you're trusting Him in that. And so, yeah, there's hope. We all
There
have
is.
hope.
We all have hope.
And so, yeah. So thank you for coming and sharing all that today.
So when this comes out on Facebook, make sure you like, share, or comment so they can make sure we get it on other people's feeds, that more people that can see any story and understand. Because if there's one thing that's a constant, living in this world is a struggle. And the struggle is different at every level. But I think this is a great testimony to anybody that is struggling or how to prepare for the struggles to come. And so like, comment, or share so we can get that out there. If you see her at church, I think she's a second service.
You know it. Third row, second service.
Yeah, I was going to say, usually second service, and make sure you come up and say hi. So if you're listening, get on YouTube and watch so that you can recognize who Annie is. Because that's the other thing about the podcast, and I've heard this from a lot of people, like I get to know other people, and I can see them in church now, and so that's a great opportunity. So make sure that you come up and say hi to her on a Sunday morning. So thanks, everybody, for joining us, and we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.